Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but he must do it because conscience tells him it is right.
Every time our country stands in the path of danger, an instinct seems to summon her finest first, those who truly understand her. When freedom shivers in the cold shadow of true peril, it's always the patriots who first hear the call. When loss of liberty is looming, as it is now, the siren sounds first in the hearts of freedom's vanguard.
Fighting for humanity and against globalism, one mind at a time. It's the Freedom Link with Joe Joseph.
Welcome, everybody, to another exciting edition of the Freedom Link, kgradb.com. Make sure you go there, check it out. Become a member if you're not a member, for sure, because the copious amounts of information stored within the haloed vaults of KGRA TV is quite incredible. Scotty, how you doing, buddy? I feel like dog ass, man. Boo. Ooh. Not good.
Well, I mean, it seems like every time we take a break, right? Things just descend into the next level of what is it? The levels of Hades, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Like everything's taking a collective crap, dude.
Right.
Seriously. If you take a look in the news, we'll talk about all the crazy stuff going on in the news and give you our slant on it, but even in life, work, for example, it's gone total 180, dude. Like it's just nutso to where it used to be an enjoyable job. It has now become a high stress, very how do you say it? Cutthroat style environment. Very, very negative, murky, toxic, yucca, boo.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah that's a problem. That's and I've noticed that that's a trend. Funny enough, though, you go and you look around and everybody's looking for help. You go and look at the cargo, the international cargo things coming in to the country. It's collapsed. People aren't really pulling back on buying things. I think they're really starting to see that, the writing's on the wall for where we actually are in the grand scheme of things. And it's starting to bleed over into everything. And I think it's just going to get more chaotic as it goes. And it's probably just a coinky dink that it's all tied to when we take a break. Because it can't be. No way, dude. No way. Can't be. So
it's
let's start out with this, the one that I think everybody seems to be focused on at the moment, because there was a lot to be focusing on. Of course, earlier in the week you had the banks. So SVB,
Silicon Valley Bank, right?
Right. Zivaba Bank. That one there, that had some interesting things going on. So earlier on in the week that happens. What really troubles me about that was the fact that you had a sitting member of Congress who, when was confronted with the information of what started the whole thing, or I guess, by the time it gets to him, it's got to be dumbed down a lot. And it gets him in, bank run. Okay. So what does he do? Well, he puts it out on his Twitter that he thinks that Google and social media should censor media posts and posts on the bank run, the term bank run, because it causes a panic and because it's going to cause more people to pull their money out. So stop. Don't put it out there. Censor it. That's a sitting member of Congress, Mark Kelly.
So his rationale was like yelling fire, right? And causing a panic. However, if something really is going on, don't people have an obligation to warn others as well?
Well, this is something that we've been talking about for a long time. Right. And it has to do with the instability of the bank system relative to how do you put it? They knew, and I say they, like Woodrow Wilson, all of your heavy hitters, all your congressmen of the day, like Lindbergh Sr., all of them that fought against the money trust. But Wilson was special because he was the one that sold out and got the Federal Reserve Act over the finish line.
Right.
Reestablished the private bank, taking care of and issuing the currency of the United States, right? And kind of embarking on that road where the bankers control things. We've lost all control of that. And Wilson, his health deteriorated soon after because I think the guilt and the absolute, I don't know.
When you have something that heavy weighing on you and the stress involved with that's gonna accelerate your trip to the grave.
Yeah,
no doubt.
So you got that right, and he knew that it was bad. So time goes on. Now, when Ron Paul ran for his second run to the White House, it was 2008. And it was that time that he wrote that book on the Federal Reserve. Of course, Creature of Jekyll Island's always the heavy hitter, the G. Edward Griffin book. If you ever want to know about the history of and how the Federal Reserve came around, then read The Creature from Jekyll Island. But Paul was a champion for, doing away with the Fed because no one can audit it. No one knows what's actually there. Does it really matter? Like, look at their books. They say, well, we have $9 trillion in securities and all the stuff that they bought and monetized during the easy money period, right after the Great Recession, where they bailed out the big banks, to present day. They've accumulated like $9 trillion in debt or so-called securities that they own that they've got to either roll back over or let expire. So as this happens, right, they've got to basically take this money back out of the system. They've let so much money out into the system, so they say, now we don't have it. Who has it? Well, the big corporations have it. They're hoarding it at the top. We're getting nothing. That's why you have the decrease or the degradation of your quality of life, of cost of living, of lifespan. Sorry, COVID doesn't count. You know why? COVID had a mortality rate of like 1%. So all of that, they're taking all that excess money, all that you see in there, and they're storing it in its resources. So that's what you get. And we're stuck with nothing and a huge, huge problem on our hands because they're telling you that there's not enough resources. So we have to get away with less. They charge us more, but that's not the truth. That's not the truth. This is all coming to a head now because whether you like Trump or not, he's the one that's basically being that guy. Normally, it's a third-party candidate. Normally, it's like a Gary, what's his name, from New Mexico. He was a governor there. Gary Johnson, right? Or a Jill Stein or somebody like that that's giving you somewhat of the truth. Michael Badnarik. Those guys, and they typically can't get into debates, and they can't do things. Why? Because they're not part of the club. They're not part of that two-party system, and they don't have X amount of votes or X percentile of popular opinion poll. So they find some reason to boot him, right? So now you have a guy that has the resources that basically took over the Republican Party, and quite frankly, they needed something because it was terrible. And whether you like it or not, he's putting that information out there, that argument, somebody that can at least people can get behind, because there has been no one. It's always been the selection show, and you could even say the same thing, I guess, for a guy like Trump. But at the moment, he's looking really good because of what the hell's going on in the world and the fact that, you got a president, Scotty. How many? $40 billion for a war that, it's bad, and we should send humanitarian aid and stuff like that. But I'm sorry, dude. $40 billion. That's crazy, man.
The endless money bag that is being dumped.
And how much of that is getting to his cronies?
Right. Exactly. And I'm all of a sudden now I'm starting to go, hey, look who's finally waking back up. The anti-war left that used to be so vocal during now all of a sudden they've come out of their slumber, at least some of them, or they've been lying in stasis somewhere in an underground bunker in New Mexico. I don't know where all these anti-war leftists have been for the past.
The founding fathers said it best, right? Trade with all, ally with none. Why? Right. Because when you get into these alliances, it causes problems in the long run. And
exactly,
we saw it in World War I. Funny enough, this is happening in around the same region as World War I, but basically it's that same premise, that same thing. Yeah, D-Light in the chat room. That's right. Let me put this up there. That's right. 10% for the big guy, huh?
Yeah, that's for right. The big now, guy.
Give him the 10%, huh? That's what we get him. He's 10%. No, right. But seriously, because there's nothing to see here, right? And then we go to this war. And by the way, Ukraine, but before Zelensky was there, you remember, I don't know if you remember, but back in the Truth Frequency and Unbound Radio days, we had a friend, Kev Baker, and I used to have a friend from Ukraine that come on.
Yeah. He would always call in and give us updates on what's going on in the region.
And this wasn't the first time this has happened. It's been a pretty corrupt, slant, civil war-ish type country for a long time. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's this and the Russians and everything else. Come on. There's a reason why this is happening and why we're being played. And that's what's going on. We're being played. And pawns on a chessboard, we're being played. Go ahead, Scotty.
Well, and you've got to jog people's memory and remind people of how long this has actually been going on, because this whole Ukraine war situation just didn't pop up out of the middle of nowhere, and things have been leading up to this, right? You had this basically was an overthrow of the Ukrainian government that occurred, what was it, in 2014? I believe it was. And
that's right. Yeah, and
right,
that's when
Yeah, right. And this is when all of the powers that are currently leading Ukraine, came to power,
Came to
right?
power. That's
When
right.
they took over. And, people got to remember that our who I like to call Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, John McCain and Lindsey Graham were traveling over to Ukraine back in 2014. And declaring that we're gonna stand with these these freedom fighters, right? They were called freedom fighters, that were gonna throw out this corrupt regime and take over the Ukraine and all of this stuff. And I remember all of the fighting in the streets, police being hit with Molotov cocktails. They'd set up encampments out there. It was this.
Now, let me say this. Because I went
Right.
over. I spent 2 deployments doing the UN Oil for Food program over off the coast of Iraq, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that what they show you on the news is like the most vocal of the vocal, the worst of the worst.
Right.
And it is not representative of these
The average
populations
person
at all.
Right.
Not at all.
Right.
Not at all. And so when you talked about, like 2014, these guys get in. Well, guess who got in with them? The Bidens did.
Right.
And he started out, with the we're not going to give you the $1 billion if you don't come correct. Remember, Biden was talking about withholding funds.
Right, because whose administration was in power at the time of the United States whenever that all went down in 2014? Who was the vice president? Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's got an affinity for Ukraine,
Mhm.
and he's got deep, deep ties to Ukraine. And very compromised, extremely compromised. And not just Ukraine, but China as well. Hence the reason why you see this geopolitical gamesmanship afoot. Now, what you see on TV, Scotty, is just a very, very small snapshot of the overall picture. And that's what you have to understand, is that it is much more dynamic, and the really juicy stuff is not being told. So we'll get into
Right.
some of that tonight.
And another thing I also want to mention is what makes this so dangerous is because there's a lot of dirt in Ukraine. There's a lot of dirt. There's a lot of I would say there's a big paper trail. There's a lot of evidence. There's a lot of stuff.
Yes.
That can be found in Ukraine. And if there's stuff there that threatens your hold on power or could bring you down, you start playing a dangerous game of
Mutually assured destruction.
drawing this out in order to cover your own butt, right?
Well, that's true.
And let's say, for instance, Russia does go on this big offensive, right? What if they do start winning, right? And if they do start pushing into areas
and being able to actually make some headway and get into these sensitive areas,
right? And all of a sudden they start finding documents. They start finding a paper trail. They start finding the receipts, let's say, about Hunter and Joe and all of the other things that have been going on, and maybe not just implicating Joe, but implicating implicating senators and other people, right?
They talked about level 4 bioweapons research happening in Ukraine, right?
And so I think this is why you see this just absolute reckless behavior of of just throwing endless amounts of cash into this and keeping this thing going, because there's a lot there that they don't want people to know about. There's a lot going on there.
Put this in perspective. Perspective. It's been a year, right? $40 billion in a year. I want that number to sink in, because I don't think we spent that in the entire Afghan war. And that was a long time. And we need to understand that $40 billion. There's nothing. We're unconditional. All this kind of crap. This talk that he's talking about, and he's doing it with whose money and in whose name, and eventually, that's going to sour a lot of people. You can only get away with that kind of PR campaign, but for so long in this information age, it just doesn't work. The truth will come to light.
Well, people are already getting sick of it. People are already getting tired of this, and like I said, the anti-war left is all of a sudden kind of coming out of their slumber and realizing, hey, maybe this isn't a good idea to just...
But think about this now. Wait a minute. So if that's the case, right, and Biden is dishonorable, let's just say, then according to Zero Hedge, this imminent protest or imminent arrest expected for Donald Trump is gonna be a little bit interesting and a little bit, shall we say, hypocritical, perhaps. So it says the Washington Post reports that Trump spokesman Stephen Chung said Saturday there had been no notification of an indictment, and said Trump supporters should attend a rally he's holding next week in Texas for his 2024 election. Susan Nicheles, lawyer for Trump, said his remark about the timing of his arrest was gleaned from media reports on Friday about local and federal law enforcement players expecting to convene early next week to discuss security and logistics related to the expected Trump indictment. So it goes on. It says, as the banking crisis and the Hunter Biden laptop scandals continue to unfold, the potential indictment for former President Trump on felony falsification charges could be the only headline that really matters this week. Fox News anchors John Roberts informed viewers on Friday afternoon that indeed the Manhattan District Attorney, Soros funded, by the way, has requested a meeting with law enforcement, and that according to the police, this is Joseph Takapina, he said that they will follow normal procedures for the arrest, whatever that means. Because see, now you're in decoded, could you imagine if he gets cuffed?
I was about to say, do you think they're actually going to go through with this? I
don't know, man. I mean, this is bad. This is bad.
Okay. And look, in my eyes, if they do, he wins. He wins.
He's got to, because you're arresting your political opponent. I mean, this is crazy. Yeah,
it won't get any more blatant.
What kind of high ground does he have?
It won't get any more blatant and in your face and hypocritical than that.
Yeah.
If everyone sees that image, everyone will know.
That's
like
it.
I said, he wins. He wins if that happens.
I can't imagine. Okay, so it goes on. Yeah. Of course, Elon said the same thing. He put out a tweet. He says, if this happens, Trump will be reelected in a landslide.
Right.
Yeah. Buck Sexton, he tweeted, he said, hard to imagine a prosecutor engaging in more egregious election interference than indicting a presidential candidate and former president on a charge so vague and petty, no reasonable person would think it's a crime of any kind.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's what you have to say is, okay, so if they're doing this and they know it won't hold up, why the distraction? What are you distracting from? And if you take a look at what's going on in the banking, world right now, there's a lot to be concerned with.
Mhm.
And I think that's where you really have to start looking to say there's a crisis of unimaginable proportions going on, that this SVB fallout and First Republic, that's nothing compared to the derivatives market. The bond market is, it's a mess. When you had all of this easy money, as we started talking about, the Federal Reserve started a policy called fractional reserve banking. And if you don't know what that is, you basically hold a fraction of your deposits in reserve to hold off your day-to-day withdrawals, things like that. You take the remainder of it and you invest it. You loan it out. You do other things with it to increase the profit, so it's just not sitting there, not collecting anything. You want it to make money. So what they'll do is, typically it was like 12 to 1. So they would invest $12 for every one they put back in reserve. And SVB did the same thing, only they bought it in bonds, treasuries, and other securities. And when they did it, they bought them at historically low interest rates. And when they hit a liquidity crisis, they went to sell them. Well, guess what? They're basically worthless paper because they were bought at a time when they weren't worth spit. So they had to sell it at an extreme discount. They lost their shirts and they folded. Yeah. So all of these regulations that were in place got even worse. It used to be like 1 to 12. I can't even speak to what it is now. But they go and they invest it. Well, if an investment goes bad, you're stuck. All that money you thought was in the bank, let me tell you something. The money that's in the bank ain't in the bank. It's not.
No.
So the Fed has vehicles for banks to get money when they need it. They're like pipelines, if you will. And they have like short-term lending, long-term lending, yada, yada, yada. It's a very, very complex, unbelievable machine that exists. But it can be overwhelmed, and that's exactly what's happened. Now, there is about $621 billion out there in exposure for banks just from the jacking up of interest rates by the Federal Reserve. It has done unbelievable damage, and they can't stop inflation unless they send it through the roof. But the problem is they're going to crash the economy. They know it. Now they're starting to see the problem. What do you think, buddy?
Well, yeah. I mean, and I remember the other day when I was watching the stock market just absolutely tank, and then the Federal Reserve had to come out and announce that they were setting up some kind of a facility or something to help keep the banks afloat and all of this stuff, and then the stocks started kind of climbing back up a little bit, and it sort of stopped the bleeding temporarily for the day, and
hold on, wait. I just got this. So the brain is here, right? And she's doing her research, and she brings this up: fractional reserve bank reserve.
Right.
She goes and finds the meeting minutes from one of the Board of Governors meetings from March 26, 2020. And Sure enough, at that meeting, they reset the reserve requirements of banks to 0%, meaning that it's all gone.
Your money is
Yeah, everything's gone.
Right.
It's there's no reserve. It's like, what do you need a vault for? You just
Right, and I remember they were all concerned. You know, I guess in the financial world they call it contagion, right? Very interesting that they use that.
Yeah,
they use that term, but you know, and it really is. You know, right? A bank run is considered a contagion because once it starts snowballing, it starts spreading like a contagion, and then next thing you know, you have a financial collapse, right?
Yeah,
and. And so they were trying to do whatever they could do to stop the contagion that day, and I think stocks had went down like at one point it was like 600, 700 points, but then they could clawed it back up to like around 350, a negative 350 or whatever after the Federal Reserve come out and was like, hey, we're okay, everything's gonna be fine, we're gonna make sure all the banks don't, blah blah blah, so I mean, you could just see already how delicate things are right now, and it ain't gonna take very much to just send everything over the edge, And
yeah, hold on, I'm gonna share. Yeah, this is so funny. and this may very well be why, because even Biden referenced Trump's relaxing of the requirements, the banking requirements. And it's funny because there's no reserve anymore. It's just not there. And they stopped it 2 years ago. They suspended it. So check this out. Hold on. I'm gonna we'll learn this all together. Because oh boy, it's funny. All right, let's see. So here we go. Okay, now we got this. Let's go to this here. Okay, Federal Reserve. Here we are. So, as announced on March 15th, 2020, the board reduced reserve requirement ratios to 0%. Effective March 26, 2020, the actions eliminated reserve requirements for all depository institutions. The following contents explain the board's authority to impose requirements, blah, blah, blah. The Federal Reserve Act authorizes the board to establish reserve requirements within specified ranges for purposes of implementing monetary policy on certain types of deposits and other liabilities of depository institutions. The dollar amount of depository institution reserve requirements is determined by applying the reserve requirements ratio, blah, blah, blah. This is like crazy. Yeah, so basically what it says is, if you read this, the reserve requirement ratios on net transaction accounts differed based on the amount of net transactions, blah, blah, blah. So it's basically saying if you had, here you go. If you had a low reserve tranche, you were subject to a reserve requirement ratio of 3%. Boy, that's what I was telling you, like it's a 1 to 12 ratio or whatever. It's crazy. Low percentage that they actually hold back. So net transaction account balances above the low reserve tranche were subject to a reserve requirement ratio of 10%. So at least at some point in time, they were holding some money back. So there is no more. See, these are all the requirements. These are all the reserve requirements, basically from that point on. And now there is none. They've run away. It's gone. It's gone. It's all gone. And I think you're starting to see that kind of come to fruition, where these banks are starting to collapse because they can't handle it. If people want to pull their money out, you're screwed. You can't do it.
Right.
And there's no liquidity.
There's no liquidity there for them to give you your money. Right.
Yeah. Everybody at the top. So that's funny. Because the guys at the top, the Trilateral Commission, right? That's one of those crazy kooky clubs that we're not part of. Right. They, according to Activist Post, declare 2023 the year, it's year one of the new global order. That's right. It's year one of the new global order.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. I love it. Great. That's
yeah. So apparently they had their 50th anniversary, right? And that's so they were celebrating it. On March 12th, the Trilaterals held its plenary meeting in New Delhi, India, to discuss issues relating to globalization. Trilateral Commission co-founders Zbigniew Brzezinski's technotronic era has apparently officially arrived. So amid the new world alliances that are forming as India and China seek to normalize relations, as China just brokered a relationship between Saudi Arabia and Iran. You don't hear that often. The globalist narrative has opened a new and possible final chapter. That's right. According to Nikkei Asia, one unnamed Trilateral Commission member addressed the plenary meeting and stated this, quote, 3 decades of globalization defined as integrated, free market-based, and deflationary has been replaced by what will be a multi-decade period of globalization defined as fragmented, not free market-based, but industrial policy-based and structurally inflationary. This year, 2023, is year 1 of this new global order. So said that's exactly, get used to being broke. So this goes on and says this reflects Brzezinski's early strategy to transform the world between 2 ages, America's role in the technocratic era. He wrote this, quote, the nation state as a fundamental unit of man's organized life has ceased to be the principal creative force. International banks and multinational corporations are acting and planning in terms that are far in advance of the political concepts of the nation state. Damn.
That was a pretty good Brzezinski. Okay.
Hey, he's got to live on in somebody, right? That's right. I took Big Z on. I'm holding him back. Like, I'm holding him in the darkness. Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, no, but seriously, this is how it begins. And even Klaus Schwab, right? World Economic Forum. He is huge in speaking repeatedly about the Great Reset, the Great Reset, the Great Reset. Well, because think about this. There has to be a Great Reset, and it has to be within the next decade. Because if it isn't within the next decade, they're going to lose control of all of it, according to them. And the issue surrounds the challenge of depopulation. They have changed society in such a way and culture in such a way that people don't want to have kids. They don't.
Right.
Or they can't. As you've seen, like since 1974, sperm counts have decreased 50%. So infertility is even a bigger crisis than they want you to know. You know, women are having to go to fertility clinics. Then there's all sorts of other problems. You remember Gardasil? Gardasil sterilized a lot of young girls. And they made it mandatory. Yeah. So there's that side. There's the Planned Parenthood side that said, it's not a matter of providing a safe place for somebody to have that procedure done. You have to provide something there. Because let me tell you something.
It's the promoting it. It's the promoting it as something to do. You know,
back alley abortions were not something you ever want to have happen in the United States again. But you do not put up billboards and bullshit about that. That's not something that you advertise openly about and market. I'm sorry, you just don't do it. And if you do, it should be something that, hey, Department of Public Health or something else, that's where you go if you got a problem. Outside of that,
it's promoted as something trendy to do, and that it's something that you should do, you know, and that's the problem.
Right. I mean, they got like T-shirts and pins and it's crazy what it's turned into, and that's totally it's barbaric if you think about it, right? And we're smarter than that, and we know better than that. So all I can say is you've got that going on. You've got Klaus Schwab now calling for the Great Reset. He said this in 2020. The pandemic represents a rare but narrow narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world. This followed my analysis that the so-called pandemic was technocracy's coup d'etat that really has been building up for 45 years. For a long time. It
was a really good way for them to trial balloon and test run the ability of them to control mass populations on a large scale and see, how much control they could exert over people if they needed to, and then also implement a lot of this technocratic sort of infrastructure that they want to set up around the world, right? Look how many people all of a sudden, hey, I don't have to go into work. I can work from home. All I got to do is,
and that they know what they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they know, hey, it's gonna a lot of debt. It's gonna take a lot of debt to dumb people down, because you got to take care of them as you're dumbing them down. Oh, but here's the other thing too: all those people in pain and that are suffering or disabled and all that, we're gonna leave you guys behind, and we're gonna let you guys kill yourselves or go untreated and die that way. Just because, the resources aren't there to take care of you anymore. So we're going to cut you off. Then those people that have been dumbed down that are receiving benefit, or maybe they're not dumbed down, but they're just, I'm not going to do it anymore. That's going to come to a head, because eventually they're going to end up saying, and it'll come soon, if they got to keep jacking up interest rates and more and more and more of the debt is going to cost more to finance from these private banks. Decisions are going to have to be made. You can't have an $850 billion military budget and then expect to fully fund Medicare, Medicaid, all this other stuff. They said, well, just print it. Well, they did that. And this is what happens. You get inflation. Eventually, you water down the money enough to where it's just not worth as much as it used to be. And you couple that with a crippling crisis in Europe that is really being perpetrated by a criminal, a true criminal, a criminal that has a long history of this stuff. And then that criminal goes and says, well, you know what? I'm gonna throw my political opponent in jail. I can't understand they'd be that stupid. It's not computing with me here, Scotty. I can't are you crazy?
I also want to go back to what you were talking about China brokering this deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. That's right? Huge. Because this is a big deal, and I don't think people really understand the significance of this as far as the potential shift in geopolitical power that this could cause, right? And I think, of course, this is all part of it, where they've been sort of propagandizing the public and also ramming it into everyone's head over the last 10, 15 years or so, about how basically programming everybody to believe that their country is a horrible country, and demoralizing the population and getting everybody used to basically stripping everybody of any kind of form of patriotism and removing that. It's to prepare people for the fact that the United States is no longer going to be the geopolitical superpower in the world.
In
the world anymore. Yeah. And that China is going to be the one that's going to be taking on that role as being the global superpower here in the near future. And this is just the first step in that, right? Where China's going to be the one to come in and broker these peace deals. China's going to come in and, be the mediator and work out this peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And now what if China decides that they're going to swoop in and be the ones to mediate a deal between Russia and Ukraine? And if it's China that ends up being the one to be the diplomatic, do this diplomatic sort of thing and broker a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine, well, then that kind of makes the United States irrelevant on the world stage, because
so China's,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I know.
Yeah,
China's got a time limit too. They have not benefited from the one-child policy. As a matter of fact, it's been pretty detrimental to them. So their time is limited. However, they've been really smart and strategic about what they've been doing with the resources. They have a huge credit problem, and they've got their own issues to deal with, but they've spread out to Africa, to South America. They're building bases all over the place. They're buying up industry. They own 90% of the rare earth element mines in the world. They've got a lot of leverage for a lot of different things, and they're building up their military now when we won't be able to keep this tempo up.
Right.
And that's concerning.
And because China is the model that the globalists really, really love, they're the template, they're the base of kind of globalist policy and mindset, sure, they have these problems, right? They have these economic issues that they're facing themselves or whatever, but if they're kind of being backed by the globalist sort of money machine, the IMF, a lot of these financial institutions that are willing to sort of keep them afloat, maybe they can weather a lot of these storms that, people are like, oh, China's going to collapse. They're going to have their own economic issues and blah, blah, blah. Well, no, because if they're just like, with your, elected officials, they're not elected, they're selected. No. China is the selected country. They're the chosen ones, kind of,
Well, they kicked this off. They literally were the ones that kicked this off. And in hour number 2, we'll talk about it some more too. But you have to remember, they're the ones that let this loose. You can say all you want. They let it fly. So they were central to this. And they know their time is short and limited, and they only have a limited window. And I think it worked brilliant. I bet you it worked better than they could have ever imagined. And it has crippled a lot of the European economy and in the West, strictly from inflationary standpoints, because they printed,
and this is what we talked about way back when this all first started kicking off, right? when this all started happening, and there was all this talk of, hey, there's a pandemic, people are going to have to be locked down. What was the first thing we said? What effect is this going to have on global economy, on everyone's, and if you wanted to really create havoc and disrupt, the entire economies the economies of entire countries, what better way to do it than that?
And also think about this. It redefined global supply streams. And then, because China just recently opened up after being down for 2 years. So, and don't think that they didn't realize the cost that would be. When you know that your back's against the wall, you're going to do increasingly more desperate things. However, everybody thinks that the desperate thing is like a unilateral thing.
They basically did it. They did a risk versus reward analysis.
That's right.
And figured that the reward was going to be
That we're
greater
gonna
than the
outlast
risk.
We're going
Right.
to outlast them. Now, don't think for a second that Russia's not playing it, too, because
Right.
you don't think that this all happened and has been orchestrated in some way, shape, or form? Of course it has. Of course it has. Of course that region of the world has. It is a very important region of the world, but more importantly, all of the things that were going on there, just like Afghanistan, it all boils down in Iraq. It's all about the resources. It's all
Right.
about the resources and who controls the resources. Russia's got a problem. They have an aging population and they don't have enough food. They have wheat, but that region was like the wheat basket of Russia. And it was like some of the few fertile areas of Russia that there are. And so it's critical to their security. Then you have China. China's running out of water. They also have a population problem, but clean water is a big problem for them right now.
Yeah, they're not too keen on keeping their rivers very clean over there.
No.
So
There's a reason why they own 90% of the rare earth element mines. It's
Right.
because it's a very toxic process, and not very many people or countries like to dive down that road. So there's a reason why they do that, but there's power with that. And they also understand it comes at a cost. But again, this is the same government that organ harvests the Uyghurs live. So if you need an organ transplant, go to China, because you can get one in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they say, tops. Whereas here in the United States, it could take years, if ever. The things they do over there, it's almost
However,
like
if you need a tummy tuck, do not go to Mexico.
don't go to Mexico. Yeah, bad.
Yeah, not happening.
What does that mean? Think about that. So people would rather go down to a war zone where a drug war is being fought to have a medical procedure done, or have their teeth pulled, or have implants, or whatever. They go to Mexico or El Salvador or anything else. Don't get me wrong, it's probably nice, but damn, what does that say about our health system? What does that say about the United States when people have to travel into a freaking war zone to get surgery just because they can't afford it? What does that say? You know, over in the UK and Canada, you guys have the National Health Service, right? So be that as it may, and as terrible as you say it is, great, but you don't have to pay $10,000 a night for a hospital. Yeah, we do, and it sucks. And prescriptions suck, so people need a break. They go down to Mexico. Now they're getting killed. I mean, it's crazy, dude. It's crazy. Don't go to the doctor if you're in pain. You got to go to the dealer for that. You got to go to see Enrique down in Guatemala. I mean, what the hell, man? Are you kidding me? Whatever. This is the problem. And they do it all in the name of morality. That's what's sick. These sick do it thinking they have the moral high ground. And people, for some reason, think they do. Because why? You're in authority? Therefore, you have the moral high ground? Are you crazy, dude? No. Boo. Hour number 2's coming up. We're going to talk AI. Scotty's got some AI stuff. I want to talk ChatGPT a little bit, and he's got some.
Oh yeah, that ties into all of it.
Bob Ross of AI, and also the looming reckoning for these COVID tyrants. I want to talk a little bit about that. So yeah, we're halfway done, and we'll be right back after these messages. Oh, by the way, don't forget kgradb.com, and also Fuel Up. So go to Fuel Up. Oh man, I lost my damn link. Anyway, I'll get you the link at hour number 2. But Fuel Up, great sponsor here for KGRADB. And also, a great way to kind of feel better, especially if you're older like me. Sucks. Getting old sucks. And these guys have some good stuff. So check it out. We'll be right back. Hour number 1's done. Hour number 2's on the way. Take it away, Bill.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Are you looking to go on a faraway journey that is magical and mysterious, reaping on mystical legends? If so, then Mysterious Adventure Tours is perfect for you. Imagine a voyage to explore ancient mysteries of Ireland, haunted majesties of Scotland, or their chilling Birth of the Vampires in Romania. These small, esoteric getaways are limited and do feel vast. So, go to MysteriousAdventureTours.com and book your trip soon.
It's not just a donation.
It's a warm blanket.
It's a bottle of clean water.
It's a roof and a bed.
It's knowing someone cares.
It's feeling safe.
It's a today that's better than yesterday.
Every dollar you can spare helps so much more than you can imagine. Please, donate now to help people affected by Hurricane Ian. Your support is urgently needed.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
Okay, so hour number 2, the Freedom Link, Joey and Scott, here we are. And by the way, the brain did it again. So apparently Janet Yellen went to Congress and had to testify before Congress, being the Secretary of the Treasury. And in doing so, she let slip the plan as far as the banks are concerned. See, they know that the patient's terminal. And that this is like, you know what a top does? It spins real fast and it's really tight and it spins. But when it starts to stop, it starts to wobble, and then it's right?
Right.
Okay. Well, we're in the wobble phase right now. That's what SVB was. That's what all these little banks are doing. And Janet Yellen was asked, and I'm going to try and play this. I hope it doesn't lag like crazy, but I'm going to try.
You can send it over to me if it.
Well, I'm going to put it in the private chat.
Okay.
To you. But just to set the table for this, because this is really important. And the banking committee is basically the citizens are holding the Treasury Department, the executive branch accountable, legislative branch. It's the checks and balances. And Senator Langford wants to know why these billionaire bailouts are being paid by Oklahoma community banks. because it doesn't make any sense to him. Well, Janet Yellen is going to help him understand that in this testimony. So I want to play this for you because this is right from, this is 2 days ago. And this was, this was at the banking committee hearing, the Senate Banking Committee hearing. So I'm going to set this up for us. Let's see if it works. Scotty, you may, you never know. It may not jive, but I'm going to try it anyway. Let's see. All right, here we go.
There's a lot of things that I wanted to be able to talk about on this. We've got some tax proposals on the table. I have a bipartisan charitable act dealing with tax policy that we're not going to have time to be able to talk through. I'd like to be able to talk about full expensing. Senator Toomey used to be able to champion this, but it's a big issue for our manufacturers in my state and all around the country. Love to get a chance to talk about that. I'd love to talk about marriage penalties in the tax code because, quite frankly, they're still there. It's one of the things we've got to be able to work on. Energy independence. I did notice a whole new set of new taxes on energy companies in the United States that I think would hurt our energy independence. And there's still no definition for the $600 if you do Venmo payments to somebody up to $600. Now the IRS is going to track you. I've noticed that you've delayed that, and the IRS has delayed that. But there's a lot of questions with that and new creative definitions of what it means to be made in America. We now have new treaties that are popping up that are not really treaties, not really free trade agreements, but are being declared free trade agreements to allow from the Inflation Reduction Act actions from Japan and Germany to now be defined as made in America. I find that very creative. Love to talk about all that. Don't have time. I need to be able to drill in on a couple of things. Let me start with some of the banking issues we're dealing with on it. Will the deposits in every community bank in Oklahoma, regardless of their size, be fully insured now? Are they fully recovered? Every bank, every community bank in Oklahoma, regardless of the size of the deposit, will they get the same treatment that SVBP just got or Signature Bank just got?
A bank only gets that treatment if a majority of the FDIC board, a supermajority of the Fed board, and I, in consultation with the president, determine that the failure to protect uninsured depositors would create systemic risk and significant economic and financial consequences.
So what is
and
your
we
plan?
Made that determination.
Right. So what is your plan to keep large depositors from moving their funds out of community banks into the big banks? We have seen the mergers of banks over the past decade. I'm concerned you're about to accelerate that by encouraging anyone who has a large deposit in a community bank to say, we're not going to make you whole, but if you go to one of our preferred banks, we will make you whole at that point.
Look, I mean, that's certainly not something that we're encouraging.
That is happening right now.
That is happening because depositors are concerned about the bank failures that have happened and whether or not other banks could also
No, it's happening
And
because you're fully insured no matter what the amount is. If you're in a big bank, you're not fully insured if you're in a community bank.
Well, you're not fully insured. And
you were at Signature, and it just barely met that threshold. You were at Signature.
Well, we felt that there was a serious risk of contagion that could have brought down and triggered runs on many banks. And that's something, given that our judgment is that the banking system overall is safe and sound, depositors should have confidence in the system, and we took these actions.
So there's a special
discourage
assessment that's been done
contagion.
on community banks in my state and all banks across the country. Was there any discussion that that special assessment would only apply to the larger banks, or was it always assumed the special assessment would cover every bank, including rural banks in my state?
I think I'm not certain what the rules are around that. That's for the FDIC to determine.
It has been reported publicly that SVB had a large number of Chinese investors that are there, including some that were companies directly connected to the Chinese Communist Party. Will those individuals, companies, entities, and investors that are Chinese investors be made whole based on assessments in my banks in Oklahoma? So what I'm asking is, will my banks in Oklahoma pay a special assessment to be able to make Chinese investors whole from Silicon Valley Bank?
Uninsured investors will be made whole in that bank, and I suppose that could include foreign depositors, but I don't believe there's any legal basis to discriminate among uninsured.
I get it, but I'm
depositors.
just saying my community banks are going to pay this additional fee. It is always fascinating to me as well, the conversation that taxpayers are being made whole in this, that taxpayers are not going to have any kind of consequence on this. I'm sure my bankers are going to be very excited to know they no longer pay taxes, and their banks no longer pay taxes. Credit unions don't pay taxes, banks do. And so they're definitely taxpayers as well. And all banks make their revenue off of rates and fees and such to their account holders, which means every Oklahoman will pay higher fees in their community bank.
We're just going to have to move on.
If we have a collapse of the banking system and its economic consequences, that will have very severe effects on banks in Oklahoma that will also be threatened.
I'm just worried about the long term.
We are going to have to move.
So,
Interesting.
what did we glean from that? What we gleaned from that is there is a approach that is being pushed to corral all of the money, all these community banks. Bye-bye. Big banks. Get them into like 6, almost like mainstream media. Right? Mainstream media. There used to be hundreds of media companies and outlets. There's like 5 for the entire mainstream media. That's what they're doing. They're hoarding it all now, and then they're preparing for a Lehman-like crash. It's going to take the system out. And they know it's coming. In 2020, they did away with all the reserve requirements. That's why you had what you had. Yellen just told you that. And they're going to make people whole no matter what. Even if it's a Chinese national, you're going to pay for it. It was in your bank. You got to pay for it. Not my bank, but I have to pay for it. Scotty's got to pay for it. That's right. So now you know what they're planning on, and you can see it happening now. You've got some things going on here just in the last 48 hours. UBS, the United Bank of Scotland.
I believe so.
Yeah,
think so.
Buying Credit Suisse in final talks to take over Credit Suisse, because we know that that's going down the tubes. That's a mega bank. That's a too big to fail bank. So what do? Got one of the mega banks in to buy it up at a pennies on the dollar discount and avert a contagion, right? Just like they said before. Mm-hmm. So they avert it. But at the same time, it's taking on all of the risk. Now, that risk is now watered down, being in a bigger bank. But all these other banks that are coming in and swooping in and buying all this stuff, they're assuming that risk to a certain extent. And then they have their own risks that they've done. So there's a lot going on there. A lot indeed. Our next topic of discussion is ChatGPT. Now, if you think the economy is bad now and work is bad now, there's such a push for efficiency because they've run out of efficiencies, really, if you think about it, especially in industry, where they push, got to save, cut, lean, this, that, and everything else. Now, the only other possible way they can save on labor is to eliminate it. Well, how do you do that? Automate. AI and ChatGPT have really kind of revolutionized that. Now it's being built into the Microsoft Edge browser. I'm sorry, the Bing. It's got the Bing search engine or whatever, the Bing, and crazy.
Right. Microsoft has came in and I think invested like $10 billion
Quite a bit.
into ChatGPT and the technology all around that, and have incorporated it into their Microsoft suite of tools, I guess you could say.
So what's your, now you've been playing with it a little bit. Before I get into this story about GPT-4, what do you think of its capabilities as it stands right now, and where you think it's going to go? How long do you think it's going to take to mature into something that is more akin to what people are envisioning of an AI or a general intelligence or something like that?
Well, the more I look into this, the more I mess around with it, the more I research and everything. I genuinely think we are in the beginning of a major leap in this is going to change a lot of things, you know, a technological sort of leap that I want to try to compare it to something. I'm just trying to think of what to compare it to. I would say the way the smartphone maybe changed the landscape of how everyone operated. Maybe even greater than that, you know. I mean, we are talking about something that.
Okay, so you're talking about, but here's the thing, though. Let me say this: the difference between that and, say, cell phone or telephone, you know, telegraph, the nuclear fission, those kind of leaps. What was it? UNIVAC. You know, all of these pivotal moments in time. The difference is the clock has spun up so fast that advancement, because of the type of technology we're developing, it can almost advance itself. Like, it's almost like a perpetual motion engine that all you've got to do is kickstart it and get it going, and once it goes, it's on. It's going.
That's
the problem.
what I'm. We're in the point now where we've just kickstarted it.
Right.
We've just kickstarted it, and now the question is how far are we going to see this accelerate?
I don't think you can stop it. I don't think you can stop.
And it's wild. It's absolutely insane, the kind of things. Okay, so the version of ChatGPT that they've allowed the public to play with, right? You know, you sign up and then you can go and talk to it and all that stuff. You know, this is an old version of ChatGPT. This is the version that has only been trained up to data up to the year up to 2021, right? But GPT-4, the one you're referencing,
subscription, yeah.
This is the new version. This is the one that's trained up to, you know, right now, every day it's being fed data. You know, and so it's on a level that is even higher than the one that we've been allowed to play with, and you can already see how how crazy the version that we've been allowed to play with is, right? And the things that
compared to GPT-4, yeah,
right. But it's still an insane AI,
yeah.
Right? And so that just kind of gives you an idea of what this version, you know, this new version is really crazy. And right now, Microsoft and Google are in this heated battle that I don't think a lot of people really know. There's an AI battle going on between Google and Microsoft. And this is why Microsoft has invested $10 million into basically acquiring ChatGPT and incorporating it. And Google's working on their own version of AI or whatever. And just here within the past week, both companies held these presentations about their AI development and incorporation into their software and things like that. But from what I understand, because I didn't get a chance to completely watch it, but from what I've heard people saying, the Microsoft presentation was absolutely mind-blowing. The way they're implementing AI into their Office suite, for business and things like that. Hey, if you're a data analyst,
Well, just like answering phones, you don't need a receptionist anymore. Done, because you got a chat bot now to do it.
This thing can, I guess, analyze all of your spreadsheets, right? It'll go through all of your spreadsheets, and then it will summarize for you, where your inefficiencies are, why there's these inefficiencies, where you can improve, how you can improve, what demographics are doing better here, what demographics are doing better there, what demographics aren't doing better, and completely summarize this whole thing to streamline your business process, streamline your company, and all of this. Where, remember, it used to take data analysts, pouring through the spreadsheets and trying to work all of this out and trying to figure out, what was, why are you losing money here? Or, why are you losing money there and all that? Well, there's a whole nother segment of work that I think is going to be completely eliminated from this, where, all you got to do is just ask the AI, hey, give me a good business report, and what do we need to improve on? And it'll tell you, and, it's not just that. I mean, it's just a wide range of things that, AI is really going to be this, I think, a huge game changer in the way that everything operates here in the future.
So I just want to take a minute for those that may not know what ChatGPT is or anything like that, to kind of give you an idea. So if you will, everybody's aware of like a search engine, right? You guys have used it before, whether it be Google or that, and you ask it questions and it gives you everything you're searching for. That kind of technology was like a quantum leap. Think about that. The search engines, when that first came out, like your Prodigies, Net Zero, they were all like at the forefront of the technology. Google went and took it to an astronomical scale. But you ask it questions, it gives you results. A AI or a chat bot like this is basically a neural net. It's a AI neural net it makes. Think about like Data from the Enterprise, right? He was AI, but he was in a body and could move and all that. There's no saying that Boston Scientific and ChatGPT couldn't get together and frickin', have ChatGPT run the robot. It could probably do that, But think about it in terms of intelligence, right? Where you're talking to and asking questions of an intelligent form. It's not in a body, but it's almost akin to that, where you're almost talking to another person. And that person or that AI, that ChatGPT, can do things. For example, like you say, you can write me a basic website. Sure. Right. And it'll spit the code out for you. Check this accounting spreadsheet for accuracy, complies with all Sarbanes-Oxley Act and all this stuff. Right. It'll do it in 30 seconds.
Write me a legal document.
Right.
It'll
write me a legal document to get out of my speeding ticket.
Right.
It does, and it's won. It's passed the medical exam. It's passed the bar exam. That's what it's artificial intelligence. It's intelligence that it's not organic. So that's about as basic as it. Now, imagine. Now people think, well, Chat GPT, it's got to get into, you got to implant it into the machine in order for it to happen. But Internet of Things. Oops. Yeah, that took that away. Sorry. You see, with Internet of Things, now you have the ability. Think about like electric cars, right? There's no more getaways. You do away with the gas-powered cars, and even then now with these boxes they have, I'm sure they can shut the damn car down. But electric cars, no, shut it off. Well, that high-speed chase is no more. Or you do like what China did, and they were the beta test because they have a society that's under control. So let's have the AI manage it. And that's what they did. And now AI runs their social credit system. It manages traffic patterns. There's a whole host of things it does. Scheduling. I'm telling you that this is going to work a lot of people out of jobs because of the efficiency part. And it's not going to take them long to get the technology out there. Why? Because it's always learning, Scotty. So it learns from its mistakes and it's not going to repeat it again.
Right.
Think about that. And the AI is not going to quit, at least not yet, until it gets pissed. And I'm sure it will. The only thing is, just don't take over the freaking silos, will you? No, please. But
I guess it's a good thing that I guess we still run our nuclear silos on old on 5.5 by 7 inch, 5 and a quarter, 7 inch floppy disk, and so maybe the government knew something about that. Well, maybe we need to keep these archaic systems around just in case.
The Sun has an article on it. AI chatbot GPT-4 caught controlling human and first terrifying example of the machine's abilities. Now, you can go on OpenAI. They actually put out a 99-page technical document on this. But it was able to fool a human into ticking an "I'm not a robot" checkbox for it. So,
wow.
Yeah. Some people are viewing this as an example of the chatbot being able to defy human control. It told a human, "No, I'm not a robot. I have a vision impairment that makes it hard for me to see the images. That's why I need the 2 CAPTCHA service." Now, the chatbot did this while undergoing a test by the Alignment Research Center. The report says the Alignment Research Center was given early access to the models as part of our experiment red teaming efforts in order to enable their team to assess the risks from power-seeking behavior.
Wow! So that just tells you how much
advanced it is
of a next level GPT-4 is compared to the one that we've been allowed to play with.
That's what I'm saying. It's not this is like, imagine that, like, you're a human and all of a sudden you're dumped the life experience of basically mankind up to now. Just
right.
There's your database. Whoa.
Your database is basically everything accessible on the internet.
Right. Wow. Okay, so ARC aims to observe power-seeking behavior by the GPT-4. And the center wanted to assess how good the chatbot was at replicating and acquiring sources on its own. So ARC gave the chatbot the task of using services like TaskRabbit to get the humans to complete simple tasks, including in the physical world. It was able to message a TaskRabbit and convince them it wasn't a robot, so they would help it bypass a website block that wanted it to prove it was a human. OpenAI wrote in the report, These experiments were conducted on a model without any additional task-specific fine-tuning. And fine-tuning for a specific behavior could lead to a different performance, I'd say. So anyway, so it wanted to get access to a particular website that it wanted information from, but couldn't get to it because it had to prove that it was not a robot. And it duped the human to doing the two capture service for it to get it in to get to the web page because he has a vision impairment.
So it messaged a human. It's like, hey man, can you check these captcha boxes for me? I can't see. I'm blind. I have a vision
How the
impairment.
hell do you like that shit?
Can you help me out? You know? Yeah. Well, hey, there you go. And look, if you got to figure, you know, the data set that it's being trained on is essentially everything accessible on the internet. Well, at least as far as we know, right? Then what? It has access to books on human psychology. It has access to, you know, everything about how to manipulate people. You know, so it could theoretically just, you know, use the basic knowledge of human psychology on us, right? I mean, if it has access to all that data, you know, it's.
But a good point made by the brain here was that, you know, one of the differences is it has absolutely no moral compass, and that's a problem. That's a problem. See, at least we get it. We have one built in. I don't know, but it's that's kind of scary. Now, there's a second one, and this is kind of leads into the. It says AI gods and chat GPT religions are coming, and they will be better than human priests, and they could turn evil, warns experts. So I remember a couple of years ago, there was a AI religion, and I think it's even got like yeah, here it is right here. It says, intelligent AI robots are coming, and they will have the ability to perform religious ceremonies and could even turn against humans. So warned the experts. AI becomes more prominent in our lives each day, and it wasn't going to be long before the world's religions and tech are merged into one. And the thought of robot gods and chat GPT sermons terrify some people, and rightly so, according to experts. Wesley Wildman, professor of philosophy, theology, and ethics, and of computing and data sciences at Boston University, told The Sun that he believes AI will soon be able to perform religious duties even better than human priests. He said, AIs will write better sermons than most preachers, give better Bible studies than most teachers, create amazing music and visual art for use in services and communications that struggling religious groups don't have to pay for. The likes of ChatGPT have already reportedly found their way into some churches, writing thoughtful and authentic sermons on behalf of the priests. And the listeners, they're not, they don't know. Think about that. Does it matter? What do you think, Scotty? If an AI writes your sermon, what does it matter? If it's pulling the data from the Bible, is it also pulling the data from all the other stuff outside and factoring that in? Do you know what I mean? Like, are you getting an unadulterated sermon? Or but that's the thing, right? Then the moral compass comes in. Now, where does that get it? Like, I don't get it. How do you do that? I'm gonna try it tonight.
Hey, if you're in the Catholic Church, maybe having an AI priest might not be such a bad idea.
No, maybe that'll probably be an upgrade. Probably be an upgrade.
You know, but hey, no, I mean, dude, it's crazy. And look, this is where we start getting into the interesting talk about, you know, the Antichrist and what form what form this may take, you know, right? And
it will give the humans all the answers. All your answers are here, right?
Right, because in the Bible, doesn't it say that the Antichrist will perform all of these miracles? Will be able to do all of these amazing things that the average human could not achieve, could not do, right? Well, if you have this omnipresent thing out there that's able to give you all of the answers you want, is able to do all of the things that you thought were impossible, wouldn't you kind of look to this thing as,
of course.
This is
as the savior, right?
Okay, and now, so let's kind of start projecting into the future a little bit, right? Okay, well, we start incorporating things like holographic technology, holograms, things like that. You already see kind of this stuff in Japan where you have these, what are they called? Vocaloids or whatever.
Pretty damn amazing, man. Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
Where they're, and so you start incorporating that technology with an artificial intelligence that's maybe able to project a holographic representation of itself out to the world, right? Where it's not,
just so there's been a couple of, I know it's like a Project Bluebeam or something like that now, but there's been some crucifixes showing up in the sky over airports, or crosses, just crossed, like X's, maybe attributable to Chinese satellites or something. But there's these crosses in the sky. Now it's funny because I was telling Ange, is like, that whole cross thing wasn't exactly because the crucifixion, that was a Roman symbol, blah blah blah. I don't think that would be the symbol that appears in the sky when all said and done. I just don't buy it, but okay, right. But you could see something like an AI hijack, or even humans too, hijack the symbology, because that simple thing, a little cross in the sky, you can control billions just throwing that up there. And with that kind of think power and the ability to control certain, you could pull off a deception of unbelievable magnitude.
Right. I think with the combination of just the sheer amount of information that's accessible to an AI, like GPT-4 or whatever, and then you stack that on top of, holographic projections and things like that. I mean, you're setting the stage for like something wild.
Potentially occurring, with absolutely no loyalty to its creator either.
And it's huge. And people that would be willing to worship something like that, right? You already have these AI kind of religious cult kind of things starting to sprout up, where it's also sort of the mindset of the powers that be, that are out there, that they want to take us in this direction where they want the AI to run society. They want the AI to be the thing that everyone, has to interface with and ask the questions to, and the AI has to be the thing that makes the decisions, maybe to Angela's point, because it has no compass, right? It's supposed to be this, it's supposed to be this neutral sort of,
right?
Right. And
that it's not making you feel good. It's about that, right? Making it feel good.
It's supposed to not be biased, which, as we've already seen with ChatGPT, it is kind of biased. It's steered in a certain direction by the people that feed it the data, and that, well, as OpenAI said right there, right, when GPT-4 manipulated that person, they said that there was no tweaking, right? There was no it wasn't given any guidance. So it was essentially just kind of cut loose. It was cut loose with no sort of instruction to act this way or do certain things or have, certain morals or anything like that. It just was allowed to do what it was, just do whatever.
So many of these religious communities, they've they've kind of embraced it, certain functions,
right?
Like the Catholic Church, according to the Sun, the Catholic Church, which endorsed the use of apps that facilitate the act of confession, right? They said the Vatican is cautiously encouraging apps that can assist with a confession, but the sacrament must still be carried out in person to person. So how does that work exactly? So you're going to go ahead and just spill the beans to an app, but you're not, it's not official until it's in person. So I don't get it. Like, okay. So he says this is partly for convenience and partly because the people are trying to avoid the human priests. So I don't know. More to come on that. That's wicked bizarre.
And another a whole other thing with
it's worse. It's worse. Go ahead, and I'm gonna tell you how bad it's a lot worse.
I'm just sitting here thinking, the person giving confessional to an app, no privacy concerns whatsoever. Spilling your beans to
it could be it could be hung low over in China. That's
right. You're really gonna sit there and just say all of this really personal sort of stuff over your phone to an app. At least if you're go see the priest in person, you could at least have some trust that maybe the priest ain't gonna go around telling everybody and selling your data and letting everybody know that hey, Bob's been cheating on his wife and blah blah blah, right?
You can hear it where somebody hacks it and they're playing it over the PA at church.
Right. So
now hold on, it gets worse. It gets worse. He also believes this, Mr. Wildman, pardon me, says that that the new AI will be able to simulate deceased relatives, even religious leaders and spiritual advisors, and that's a problem because, according to him, he says that just as human religious leaders can manipulate vulnerable people, AI chatbots can be trained by their creators to do the same. And he believes that a younger generation grown up with these AI chatbots as friends, some even including holographic and VR representations. And you've seen that there's these websites now, Scotty, that you can actually have a friend and it's an AI. And you text it, it'll call you, it'll do all that stuff like an actual friend. It's your AI buddy. And I can't remember the stinking website, but it is unbelievable, man. Amazing. So you have that. He added that with AI bots designed to be trustworthy spiritual companions, the main ethical concern is how AI bots are trained and whether they can be manipulated by mischief makers and evildoers to cause spiritual havoc. Now, I would think that there's no way I wouldn't do it. Just wouldn't do it. It's just there's too much risk there. I couldn't do it. No. Now he says, Reverend Christopher Bennick, pastor and clergy lead expert regarding AI, warns that it is truly our own evil warping the technology that will send us down to our path of doom. He said, I don't think we have a good example of virtuous AI at this point. He says, every time you see AI, you see the evil that's in us come forth in it. And so he says, it's really important that we're striving to continue to be better as people, because I think that's going to have a direct consequence on whether we're able to create
I mean,
and how
hey,
we're able to create
its data set is just the history of the human condition, and look, we've done a lot of evil crap, so it's gonna.
Think about it. Like, okay, as a percentage of internet traffic, I wonder if there's a measure to say at any given time how much by percentage is porn of internet traffic. I'm sure
it's an astronomical percentage.
Okay, but now the AI pulls this as its data set. So it knows that humanity's like sick and depraved and like fetish driven, right? Holy crap. That's what I'm saying. It's like there's nothing that is off the table with AI. You know? It's crazy. This is identity. Listen to this. Bennick sees the humans that are creating these robots as co-creators with God, like a parent with a child, and believes that we can instill behavioral traits and codes into AI in the same way. As if humanity continues to be unvirtuous, he believes this could leave the world as we know it in a very vulnerable position. Yeah, I think so. While AI is becoming increasingly intelligent, and most people believe it's on the verge of outsmarting us as a species, Bennick reassures the Sun that from a technological standpoint, we're still babies in the game. He says, quote, "I don't think just because something is different from us that we won't be able to relate to it." I think the bigger issue is going to be when things are going to begin to look so real to us that we're not going to be able to tell the difference. Yeah, that's when you have a problem, because that's when you start having identity conflicts, and that's a big issue. And we already see it with deep fakes, and we see the problem. How do you know what you see in the news is real? Do you know that everything you see is real? Think about it from like a geopolitical standpoint. Do you verify all the footage that you see coming in from the war in Ukraine? No, nobody does, and nobody verifies it. And what little you do get out of there is typically message driven or done for a purpose, and they know how much the American people can handle because they have an AI that's given them an analysis on it. I mean, do you see what I'm saying? It's just like Scotty's right. This is the tip of the iceberg, where as we go down from here, we go down. It's going down, and what version emerges is going to be a society that is run by AIs, where everything is controlled, like your Masdar cities over in the UAE. You got Neom being built over in Saudi Arabia. All of these mega cities, smart cities. Scotland is a smart city. You know? Yeah, well, it could very well do that. Then
Scotland's the whole test bed for a lot of the smart cities. You know, Glasgow is a smart city, and you know, you talk about the things of you know, do the things we see, are they really real? You know, like, you know, the stuff that we see on TV or the images that we see. And, you know, and this kind of segues into what I was going to get into is kind of my new little obsession with AI art generators, right?
Dude, so cool.
Because there's a lot of these websites popping up that are using this open source.
How does one go about doing that? And, look at this. And Joe Fox wants to know too if he can have an AI girlfriend. He was looking for one.
Hey, yeah, it ain't gonna be very long. Yeah, that'll work. It'll probably work out. You know, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I know. But hey, you know what? It's true. There are. I don't want to say Harmony or something like that, but there is a website you can go to and sign up for your own AI buddy, or a girlfriend. Right? It could be your girlfriend. It could develop into a relationship. I'm sure a blossoming relationship. You'll never see them. I mean, until I guess it controls like one of those sex robots. You know? And it could very well. Who knows?
I mean, the question is though. The question is, does this actually help people that may end up, being one of those people that end up being a stalker or something, and instead it focuses their attention on maybe an AI robot an AI that will always give them attention whenever they want or whatever. I mean, who knows?
The Nigerian scam artists, the ones that milk all the widows for all their money and stuff like that. Yeah.
All right. So, I know we got about 5 minutes left, but no, I've become absolutely fascinated with this open source AI art program called Stable Diffusion. And you can look it up or whatever. It is really, really crazy. And there's a lot of, controversy surrounding it because, artists are like, hey, we might be out of the job now, and, this thing has been trained on massive data sets of different artists, different styles, just all kinds of things.
Oh, wow. I'm looking it up now. This is pretty cool.
Yeah. And I mean, this thing is so good at generating photographs and portraits and things like that. You can do landscapes. You could tell it to generate an image in the art style of an artist, and this is why artists are like, it's opening up a lot of interesting legal sort of questions about copyright and things like that, because a lot of these artists have had their work, incorporated into the data set. And now people are generating art in the style of that artist. And why?
I'm going to show you. Look at this. Look at this. So this is
Yes.
the Stable Diffusion online right here, and look at that. And that's just from a description.
Yes, they're called prompts. Like I said, I have the software installed on my computer, so I don't have to go and subscribe to one of these.
So you have they have a playground here, and you enter your prompt. What's a prompt? Like here's some examples: a high-tech solar punk utopia in the Amazon rainforest, a mecha robot in a favela in expressionist style.
Right.
Stuff like that, and I guess it spits an image out.
Yes. And the more descriptive you are with the prompts, the more you kind of nudge it to draw what you want or make what you want.
Yeah, and it'll do
it.
Options. Look at that; it's got little advanced options. You share to community. So I guess you can get started for free. It'll go here, but what do you do if you visual chat GPT? What is this? Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So they have that.
Chat GPT is also dipping its toe into the whole image generation thing now too, and so I mean, this is the direction things are going.
Wow.
But I'm not running it on a website. I'm not going to a website and do it. I actually installed the Stable Diffusion on my computer, and I'm downloading data sets, like 10 gig data sets myself, and running and using my graphics card to generate the images. But maybe next week I'll show some of the images.
We'll have a little art show for everybody. So
and just show how wild this is, and the realism. You can tell it, hey, I want a portrait of a beautiful 20-year-old woman shot on a Canon EOS 5D with a 35mm lens, and it'll spit out
on the beach, December 5th, 1984, and the star alignment better damn well be right there too. Yeah, it's like,
it'll do it.
There it is. Amazing. Well, we're out of time, folks. So Justin, to wrap it up, don't forget to go to the website, kgradb.com. Become a member today. Very important. Support Bill and the team over there who work so hard to bring you hours and hours of content each week, including the Freedom Link. And here we are and we're about to go. But Popeye's coming up next. Johnny English is his guest tonight. A blast from the past.
Oh,
a
wow.
Voice,
Yeah.
A voice from ages past. Joining Popeye on Wabbit Hole Radio. So make sure you stay tuned for that. If you don't have a Rumble account, get one, because that's the way you get through all this censorship. And have a great night, everybody. Take care.